Okay, good evening. It is December 7th, 2021. Welcome to the San Marino Unified School District Board of Education meeting. Here is your board president, Shelley Ryan.
Thank you, Dr. Choi. There is nothing to report from closed session. We now begin the regular open session. It is now 7:04. I'd like to call to order. The procedural item is Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to call on Karen Nguyen.
Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're good.
Hi guys, hope your days were good. So I am Karen, the ASB Vice President and Student Board Member. This is my third and final year on ASB, and I could attempt to summarize all the activities and events we've done in the past 3 years I've been on this team, but I don't know if I have the brain capacity for that. But I can tell you what's going on now. So right now, the school is in the middle of a 2-week-long holiday spirit week, and this is full of dress-up days where if you dress up, you win prizes like candy canes and cookies and whatnot. This spirit week is meant to provide a somewhat uplifting presence on the campus before finals week kicks in. And Thursday is Ugly Christmas Sweater Day. If any of you guys want to join in on that, feel free to. We have no major events next semester like homecoming, but we do have a hoop coming, which is on January 28th. And I'm sure Coach Pop and the basketball team would really appreciate it if you guys showed up for that and showed your support. And then we have dances, assembly, luau, and drive-in movies lined up, the usual. And I wanted to keep this brief in case we didn't want to be here for too long. So that's all I have. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Karen. Okay. You want to announce?
We have a certificate for you, Karen. And so we'd like to take a quick picture with you, if you don't mind. Dr. Troy, if you
Of course. Absolutely. Right over here. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
So Karen, on behalf of the board, I just want to thank you. This has been a challenging year, but it's made it better with you serving on the board and representing San Marino High School. So thank you for that. Next, we need an approval of the agenda. Is this an action item?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Jack. Thank you, Mr. Chang. With that, I'd like to do roll call vote. Mr. Kalaki,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Chong,
Aye.
Mrs. Jack,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, aye, and student board member, Ms. Nguyen. Thank you. With that, the approval of the agenda. Next, we have the approval of minutes. This is an action item for November 9th, Board of Education meeting minutes. I will need a motion.
Oh, I move to approve the minutes.
Second. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mrs. Chung. Thank you, Mr. Kalaki, Mrs. Jack,
Aye.
Mrs. Chung,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mr. Kalaki,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, I, student board member. And with that, the approval of minutes for November 9th. Number 7 is our public comment section. This is a procedural item. The Board of Education has adopted Board Policy 9323B to ensure the public's right to be heard in any matters pertaining to the San Marino Unified School District. Persons who wish to provide public comment will have three options to submit public comments: submit through an online form, request to speak during the meeting via Zoom, request to speak during the meeting in person through the public comment card. The public submission for public comment for the open and closed session on December 7th from 11 a.m. through 3:30 p.m. The one comment was received during this time. It is not read, but was provided to the Board of Education. Request to speak during the meeting via Zoom during public meeting comment. During public comment, the meeting will pause for 1 minute to take requests to speak. Raise hand function is used to take requests during the public comment period. For online attendees, press the raise hand icon to add yourself to the queue. For phone attendees, dial *9. The speaking order will be determined based on the order of requests received. Individual speakers will be unmuted and called to speak. Request to speak during the meeting in person via the public comment card. Please complete the public comment card. Submit the completed card to the designated drop box with the assistant to the superintendent no later than when the agenda section item that is not on the agenda, consent, information, and action section is called by the board president. Opportunities for public comment are offered prior to closed session, at the start of the regular open session for items not on the agenda, and prior to consent, information, and action items for matters on the agenda. The Board of Education reserves the right to add a public comment period prior to any individual item on the agenda. 5 minutes may be allotted to each speaker, maximum of 20 minutes to each subject matter. However, in the event there are more than 4 speakers on the same subject matter, the board president retains the discretion to adjust and limit the time allocated to each speaker to ensure that all wishing to speak will be heard within the 20-minute allotment. 7A, communication from the audience regarding matters that are not on the agenda are to be made at this time. This is an informational item. Dr. Choi?
Thank you, President Ryan. We're pausing for 1 minute to take requests to speak regarding matters not on the agenda. If you'd like to make a request, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. We have 30 seconds remaining. If you'd like to make a request, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. Okay, President Ryan, we have one request via Zoom.
So we have the one request on Zoom and 5 in my hands for the requests for public on the cards. So that's 6 speakers under this item. So we have 20 minutes. Want to hear from the board? 6 speakers, 20
Are
minutes.
they all matters not on the agenda?
These should all be matters not, I have to check to see the cards to make sure that they're matters not on the agenda.
They're not on the agenda.
Okay.
I mean, some it doesn't say. We're not on the agenda. Mhm. I'm hearing from the board about 3.5 minutes.
3.5 minutes.
Mhm. You want to ask the Zoom member first?
Okay. Mary Delgado, your line is now open for public comment. You have 3.5 minutes.
Okay. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, thank you so much. Good evening, board members, President Ryan and Superintendent De La Torre. My name is Mari Delgado, and I am a paraprofessional at our recently recognized Blue Ribbon Huntington Middle School. As a member of our San Marino CSEA Executive Board, I would like to thank the board and the district for signing up San Marino Unified School District for the Summer Savings Program. As a current parent of a 7th grade student, this program will help me and my family plan for a comfortable and memorable summer break ahead of my daughter's first year at San Marino High School. For that, I am so grateful. And on behalf of our classified membership, we would like to thank everyone involved. Thank you so much and have a great evening.
Thank you. I'd like to call up Marguerite Lindsay.
Hi, good evening, President Ryan, board members, student board member, cabinet. Thank you for seeing us here tonight as a special education paraprofessional and the CSEA Association President for San Marino Chapter 120. I would like to thank the board and the district for tentatively signing up our classified employees for the summer savings program. I've had and I have sent the board 72 signatures from our classified that are really interested in this and are very thankful and appreciative for moving forward on this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex Tarantula.
Good evening, board President Ryan, Superintendent De La Torre, and the rest of the board. I would like to thank you as well for signing classified staff up for the tentative summer savings program. This program will not only benefit myself and my family greatly, but also my colleagues as well. And I would like to thank you very, very much for doing so. Thank you so much.
Next, Janice Youngblood.
Good evening, I'm Janice Youngblood, and I'm Vice President of CSEA and a paraprofessional and recently a steward. So I thank you very much for that. I just want to recognize President Ryan and Superintendent Linda De La Torre and the board members and the cabinet. And just to reiterate, we are so grateful. It's been a long time coming to have the summer savings program for our members. And I know for every single one of them, they truly appreciate you for doing this for the rest of our members. It will be invaluable to them. It will help them not only during the summer breaks, it will also help them to complete their education. It just will be extremely valuable. And I thank you very much.
Thank you. Letitia Aranda.
Greetings, board members, and all those here and all those listening online. I'm Letitia Aranda, president of the San Marino Teachers Association. And congratulations to CSEA on finally getting the summer savings program. I think it only took you 5 years, 4, but it's there. And it is, as I sit here and listen, I'm reminded of the excellent efforts our board and our community, our teachers, all stakeholders make in rising up to challenges. It doesn't always seem to be on the timetable that seems fair, but we know that we trust that we all work towards it. For the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've had teachers walking up and down Huntington Boulevard, holding signs trying to get your attention. Tonight, I would like for everyone to remember times past when the district made every effort to make important things happen. As our teachers struggle with rising inflation, as they struggle with being very low compared to other districts in pay, as they struggle with years of filling in the gaps, I'd like to urge not only our board, but our community, and continue to support our teachers as they really put all stops to meet the needs. We need to meet our needs. We sacrifice and we give. And just the way we heard those wonderful, thankful CSEA members, thankful for the help. Your teachers are in need of help. Your morale is in need of a boost. We know you work hard. We do too. We know you've made sacrifices and do so every day. We do too. It's time to remember teachers are also stakeholders. It's disappointing when I see in the agenda all the people who are representative of what the district considers stakeholders, but not one slot there is for teachers. It says a lot. Please, please show your support. And this message is brought to you by every member of our teachers union and those parents and community members who support them. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you. Dennis Kinnear, please.
Take this off. See, I'm Dennis Neer. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Rotary Club of San Marino and San Marino Rotary Charities. We had previously said that Rotary Charities would donate $21,000 to the school district for their security system. Linda has told me tonight that the security system has arrived, and I just want to report that tomorrow I'll deliver a check for $21,000 to the school district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Neer.
Thank you.
7B, communications from the audience regarding matters that are on the consent agenda are to be made at this time. Dr. Choi.
Thank you. We are pausing for 1 minute now to take requests to speak regarding matters in the consent section. If you'd like to make a request, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. We have 30 seconds remaining. If you'd like to make a request to speak regarding matters in the consent section, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. President Ryan, we have no requests.
Thank you. Next, we have the consent section of the agenda. That's 8A to 8K.
I move to approve the consent section.
I second.
Thank you, Mrs. Chong. Thank you, Mrs. Jack. With that, a roll call vote. Further discussion?
Yeah, I have one question. With regard to the chaperone guidelines dealing with the overnight stays, I noticed that it says that there is a requirement for screening of the chaperones and that no person shall as a chaperone, act as a chaperone or serve as a chaperone unless cleared through the methods, specifically with regard to law enforcement agency and fingerprinting. That is a requirement for any overnight chaperone, is that correct?
If they are not a parent, for non-parent chaperones.
Okay. Can I ask what the reasoning for that is?
Actually, that has been a decision that has been in place for decades in this district. We have so many parent volunteers that in order to, afford to have them fingerprinted through the Department of Justice and FBI would be very cost prohibitive. And there has been, a relationship with our parents that has built up over the years. So we have not found that to be necessary. Any non-parent volunteer would have to go through that process.
So,
But that's something that the board can change at any time. I mean, that's entirely, if you direct us to do something to the contrary, we're happy to do that.
I think that it would be proper that anybody that is serving as an overnight chaperone have a proper background check, regardless of whether they are related to one student or more students on a specific trip, because obviously they're not the parents of all students on that trip. And so if the board's open to directing to that extent, then
Yeah.
I would
not on the
request that.
agenda.
If not, then I would like to request that there please be an item placed on a future agenda so that we can discuss that.
Okay, we'll bring it back for further discussion at a later time. Thank you.
Okay, we do have two, like a motion on the floor. So with that, like to do roll call, please, Mrs. Jack,
Aye.
Mrs. Chong,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mr. Clacky,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, aye, and student board member. And with that, the consent section has passed. Communication section. This is a procedural item, communication from the Board of Education. Let's begin with Mr. Chang. Oh, you don't want to begin? Okay, Mr. Clacky.
Yes, so it's been a little while since our last regular meeting. On November 10th, I attended the San Marino High School Showcase. That was an absolutely great event. And I personally heard many positive comments from families that were both from within the district as well as from outside the district. And I wanted to take a moment to applaud the hard work of everybody that was involved in putting that together, specifically Jose Kerr and Jason Kurtenbach and every team member. So thank you very much for that. On November 11th, I attended the men's water polo banquet, which was great to see those students honored for their hard work on a very successful season. On November 12th, I did hear great news that our women's tennis CIF championship was achieved. And I know we're going to hear more about that later tonight. I do want to give a big thank you to Dr. Choi and to everybody that was involved with the vaccination clinic. I hear that was a very successful event, and it was very, very good. Very encouraging to hear that many of our youngest students were protected through that. So thank you very much for all your hard work on that. Also attended the diversity, equity, and inclusion training, which was, I was very thankful that we had the opportunity as a board to participate in that. I think that there's some very serious and important issues that we discussed during that training, and that it's always good to keep those issues that we were discussing and thinking about in the front of our mind, so that all parts of our community are included. Also, I was fortunate to attend a number of the Titan Hoops men's and women's basketball games, and both teams were very good. And so it was great to see them compete. I had the opportunity to judge at the La Costa tournament for the debate team. And also, I look forward to hearing more about our debate team later tonight. I want to wish each of our secondary students good luck as they approach finals week next week. I know that there's a lot of stress that goes into that. So keep your head in the game, keep healthy, and keep things in perspective. And then finally, I wanted to renew a previous request that I had made and that I know at least one other board member has made, that we begin the process of a comprehensive search for a superintendent. We have not yet begun that, and I'm hopeful that with the next month or so, we can start to move forward and make some progress on that front.
Mr. Chang.
First of all, during the holiday season, personally, I want to congratulate all the school district, the teacher, staff, administrator, and the parent and student. As you know, the last March 2020, we closed the school. So for the last 20 months was the most tough situation, I think, in our lifetime. So this time we really need to appreciate, yeah, we still here, yeah. I see the lot of my friends, I see they are passed away. I see in the San Marino Tribune. So I think this is the time, I think everyone should work together, restart, and then celebrate with your family member. Yeah, I think in your lifetime, you never forget the year of 2020 to 2021. For my activity, December 1st, I also attend for EDI training section. Thank you for Dr. Directory arranged for this training for all the school board members. And then December 3, I observed I think the last time, maybe may not be last time, because if virus continue to come out, so maybe have so many time or so many shots. But this is the last one. You know, I observe. I personally, and also for the school board, I think we need to appreciate Dr. Choi. You know, set up the vaccine clinic, stay from the 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. Yeah, during the different time, I rechecked several times. Yeah, I think it's great. And because we no longer to put this on the school board agenda, so I want to remind everyone. I said I want to conclude for this activity because just think about the stuff from the beginning of this year. So the time vaccine is really needed, but we cannot get a vaccine. The time I called the LA County supervisor, I even called a congressman, and they are not really can help for us. But finally, we get a USC K-Medicine, so they work as a partner and with us in South Pasadena and La Canada. So that's the first time we are ahead the other school district and the Southern California. So we give to our teacher and the staff. I say this the assurance, yeah. So someone mentioned about the money, but I think for the year of 2020 to 2021, if each school district can know how to protect their teacher and the staff life, that's much better. Mean they care about their teacher, they care about their staff. Just think about you give a certain percent, but your teacher staff, they get a hospitalization. I'm the retired hospital administrator. Each diagnosis in an admission probably costs you 10,000 more. But look back, how safe this school district. So with that, I think that sometimes we really need to think about what is the priority for the school district. I want to emphasize again, the year of 2020 and 2021, the priority is the life for the human being. Life for the human being. If you are healthy, you have to say the thanks God, we're still here. So anyway, I want to go back to for the several months, last several months from the April to the last Friday. So we finished the 2 shots for the teacher and the staff. And then we immediately, we also did the shot for the 12 to 18 students, 2 shots. And then lastly, not lastly, and then we also do the 3rd shot for the teacher staff again. And then the last Friday, that's the last one, we finished the 2 shots for the age 5 to 11. So with that, we can be confident to say San Marino community is the most safe area in the United States. I don't think the people care about this. I don't think the city understand this. But how much contribution this school district provide to the teacher and the staff and the children, and make us the safe surrounding. Otherwise, tonight we may not sit in here. You know, for the audience or the school board member for the school board meeting. I remember the last year, several months, we are hiding there because we think the virus is very dangerous. Right now, even indoor, we wear the mask, but I think we are safe if we can continuously know how to in compliance of the LA County health guidance. So this is what I want to emphasize. I want to mention. Thank you for the school district leadership, from the Dr. Wilson to the Dr. Territory, with your full support, so we can carry out this project, and finally everyone gets a shot. Okay, so I think this the things we need to remember. Okay, in the year of 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. Mrs. Chung.
Thank you. So for my activities, I also attended the showcase on November 10th, and I wanted to echo Mr. Kalaki's thanks to the staff and as well to the students, because the students really showed up in amazing numbers. I think like probably every single student was there, whether they're representing a club or an activity or an athletics or performing arts, some of them doubling up even. I saw empty tables because I'm pretty sure they were at another table, which meant that these kids are doing multiple things. And so I really wanted to say thank you for San Marino High School putting that on as a big group effort. November 12th and 13th, San Marino Dance had a lights out show, which was really fun to watch. Small but powerful performances put on by the groups. And on November 15th, I helped with the Carver Book Fair setup. It was great to bring that back to Carver in the auditorium. The kids just light up when they get to pick out whatever books they want and then go home and show their parents. And luckily there was no slime this year. November 17th, I tuned into the East Meets West webinar on cognitive psychology, cognitive behaviors with Dr. Mona, which was very informative and touched on something I'll kind of circle back to. There were a couple of Loxta Zoom meetings that I also attended to connect with our other trustees in the area. And on a personal level, I want to say thank you to Dr. Choi because my own child did participate in the vaccine clinic. And you know, my friends and I were texting because the clinic went on for hours and you could hear children, you heard stories of children, you know, really not happy about being there, but they did such an amazing job. Thank you, Dr. Choi, because there was this kind of party atmosphere to it with popcorn and lollipops. And my daughter, I told her we're going back for her second one. And the first thing she said was, do I get a lollipop? And so, and she literally like tucked it in under her mask and was sucking away the whole time with their mask still on, waiting her 15 minutes. So I really appreciated all the effort that went into that and the volunteers that helped make that happen as well. And I also just want to echo, or not echo, I want to encourage everyone to be really vigilant. We're heading into another variant that people don't know what's going to happen with. And I think with all the holiday travel, which was fantastic, I think we all just need to be extra vigilant and careful so that we really are putting others' interests and health for the community up front. I have a CSBA virtual conference at the end of this week. I think many of my other board members and staff are going to be participating in that. So I look forward to that. And then I wanted to circle back to the diversity, equity, and inclusion training with Dr. Carla on December 1st. I prepared something not because it's insincere, but because I wanted to really make sure I get it right, what I wanted to say, because I've really been pondering a lot about the conversations we had. So student-centered decision-making, for me, when I look at it with an equity lens, really speaks to sustainability and fairness for the future for all students. The future is not yet written. There are so many different decisions that we will be making that will ripple across time and really determine who we are as a district. And I think it's important for myself to remember not to let any of those decisions be politicized because that only prioritizes the adults in the system and not the students. And I really always want to make sure that whatever decisions we are making is always putting students at the center. And while I, as a board member, one of 5, am tasked with balancing all the perspectives and priorities of our school community, ultimately, the most amount of weight will always be given to the students in our schools to protect their scholarly preparation, their extracurricular opportunities, and especially their sense of well-being. We adults have the responsibility to prioritize the needs and well-being of our students so they feel safe today and tomorrow. Even today, the Surgeon General issued a call to the public to really be mindful of student mental health. And in light of recent events that have taken place, it's just clear that everybody is really, that students are really having a difficult time right now. And so I really want to remember that whatever we're doing is always putting students at our center. And that takes honest and real engagement. That will be awkward, that will be uncomfortable. Because we're all doing something new and the work is inherently hard, which means there will be a temptation to pull away from it or to shut it down. And the pacing is going to feel different for everyone. I know that for some people, it may feel like we're moving too fast. For other people, it may feel like we're not moving fast enough. And I appreciate that diversity. I appreciate that everybody comes at it with a different pace, because that really does allow diverse perspectives to be part of the conversation. And those conversations are the things that is what's going to lead to the transformation of new shared understandings and collaborative new strategies that will replace our broken ones. The messy engagement is necessary and it will bear fruit if we cultivate it with patience and respect and empathy and compassion so that every person feels seen and heard as we move our schools forward. We need to always remember that data and the form of information and input from everybody will guide our decisions so that we are proactive and not merely reactive to all whims and events that occur around us and swirl about us. And we must be steadfast and resolute to develop a long-term plan for our students that takes into account all of our diverse priorities and perspectives. And the data will speak for itself, and especially when we get input from everyone. And on that note, I want to encourage everybody to open that email, open that text that asked you to look at the LCAP committee, stakeholder committee, because that is really the tool that the state wants to use to be able to allow local control for the community to really have input in what happens in our schools. And so it's not about being the typical volunteer. It's not about being the typical quote unquote leader. Everyone is a leader in their own life. And I really encourage everybody, all community members, not just students, but people throughout the community to be part of that and to participate in that committee.
Mrs. Check.
I just have 2 comments on December 1. And Mr. Chang, you were also there at the Safety and Wellness Committee meeting, December 1 in the morning. Yes.
Thank you.
And Pearl led the event for us, and she did a wonderful job. I really would like to commend Dr. Ray for the diversity, equity, inclusion training that she did for us the afternoon of December 1. The issues were complex. The issues were difficult. The issues were presented in a very clear and non-confrontational manner. But at the end of the day, she started with and ended with a very, very simple statement, which is we can learn a lot from colors. They all are different, but they all exist very nicely in the same box. So we started with that simple tagline. And I think at the end of the day, no matter all of the complexities and difficulties that we will face, hopefully at the end of the day, that kindergarten statement will be one that will unite us. So thank you.
Thank you. And I want to be mindful of everyone's time because the students are waiting. So I'm just going to keep my communication very short. Thank you and congratulations to San Marino High School on a wonderful open house. Congratulations to Chinese Club on the Mid-Autumn Festival. Thank you for helping us to raise funds for our schools. On piggybacking from Mr. Chang's comment, thank you, Dr. Choi and other staff members who worked and supported the vaccine clinics. I worked several of those myself in another school district, attended a number of LACSTA meetings, city club meetings, wonderful to see the Rose Court. And I think we're going to have San Marino Schools Foundation report out on Giving Tuesday, which will be wonderful to hear the support from the community for our schools. And I've been doing check-ins with our city council members on a monthly basis, just to build the relationship and the open communication and working together. So with that, Dr. Delatorre.
Thank you, President Ryan. I'd just like to say very briefly that this time of year, I think it's so important that we all have an attitude of gratitude. And I know I certainly do. I am very grateful to work with such a hardworking, intelligent board. I am so grateful to have such an amazing executive team, such a great asset in our accounting and budgeting and finance department in Pearl Izuka. Thank you so much for all that you do. Judy Correnti, my right hand in HR, just a wonderful job. She's really stepped up in a time when we're very short staffed. And as I look around the room, you know, it's so wonderful to work with such highly qualified, devoted teachers, parents in the community, former board members, Dennis Neer for your generous donation on behalf of Rotary in order to help us with the security that we need for our students to keep them safe. Of course, our president of PTA affiliates, thank you for all the hard work that you do year in and year out. And I know you get that big fat salary in exchange. And our amazing students who we're going to recognize tonight for all that you do. You are the reason that we wake up in the morning and come to work. It is all about our students in San Marino. And we're so grateful for you, your resilience, your tenacity, your intelligence. And so thank you so much for making it possible for all of us to come together as a school community. So with that, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. That's the most important thing I think we all need to remember this time of year. Be kind.
Thank you. Communication from student board member. Okay, you're good. Thank you. All right. Next, item 10, communication from the audience regarding matters on the information agenda are to be made at this time. This is an informational item. Dr. Choi.
Thank you, President Ryan. Let me go ahead and bring the screen up so that folks on Zoom can see. All right, we are pausing for 1 minute to take requests to speak regarding matters in the information items section. If you'd like to make a request, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. We have 30 seconds remaining. If you'd like to make a request to speak regarding matters in the information section, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. Hey, President Ryan, we have no requests.
Thank you, Dr. Choi. Next, information item. This is a procedural item and 11A. I'd like to call upon the Lady Titan tennis team for their recognition. On behalf of the Board of Education, we would like to recognize the Lady Titan tennis team for winning Division I championship. The speaker I'd like to call up is Mr. Melvin Pereira. Going up, or you're speaking?
Yeah.
I wasn't ready to speak today. I'm not sure what I'm going to say, but thank you, board members, for recognizing the tennis team. Thank you, President Ryan. Mrs. Jack. Oh, God. Dr. De La Torre. I went through a lot of her courses. She's done a lot, and we have to follow all the protocols. I mean, I'm proud of the girls and our girls team since I've been here for, I don't know, 12 years. Our girls team has never won a Division I title. We have been always aiming towards that. And this year, the girls, we were not actually one of the strongest teams. I was just sitting out there, down there and thinking what I should say. Basically, I think to sum up the season is, we played as a team together. Everyone had a job to do, and they did not rely on the best players to win. And I was basically begging my team in the playoffs, let's not rely on the best players because they're always bringing in the points, especially our number 1 singles, 2 singles. And I made a move with my number 3 singles. She's here, Selena. I put her in doubles with another girl called Elaine Wu, and they just swept everybody too. So these are my 3 strong teams. And then the others who are actually unranked, I've been begging them to do well, because no one is really expecting them to do well. And they are the, they are the ones that actually brought in the points, the final points for us. If they did not do their part, I mean, the last match was a nail biter. So it was against our rivals, La Cañada. And just let you tell you this is not going to happen ever. We played La Cañada 4 times this year. Once in March, it was a short season. That's why you only played them once. And 3 times this year, I mean, in this season, 3 times. And we beat them all 4 times.
Wow.
And if you look at it, in tennis, you have to be good also, obviously. You have to have, they play their personal tournaments. It's called a UTR, a Universal Tennis Rating. And they'll take the top 10 UTRs of the 10 girls we have and La Cañada has. And for the past, I don't know, 2 years, we've been beating them. I mean, we beat them. They haven't beaten us in the last 12 years. But for this year, they have a total UTR of 64 points, I'm estimating. And we have a total UTR of 49 points. We're not even close to them. And somehow we win. It's because of the team effort. So that's why I'm really proud of my girls this year for winning Division 1. The last time I won a CIO Division 2 title is with Mrs. Jack's daughter, Devon Jack.
Yeah.
All right, that's it.
Coach Mel, we have a certificate for you, and we are so proud of you and your Lady Titans. We have a certificate for each one of your athletes. And so if you would just come up here and stand right in front of Mrs. Jack, we're gonna take a picture. And I'm gonna call out your name so you can get your certificate. Camden Wu. There you go. Elaine Wu. She's not here. Okay, well, yeah, thank you. Isabel King. Valerie Hall. Katie Lou. Selena Lou. Olivia Center. She's out, okay. Yes, thank you. Mandy Rivera. Celine Young. Giselle. Amelia Lynn. Tiane. Okay. All right. And Marina. Okay, did we get everybody who's here? Perfect. Okay, if you can just step back and take a photograph of your coach in the center and President Ryan. All right.
This way.
We just need to move a little bit this way. Yes. You guys get over just a little bit. Thank you so much. All right, congratulations, ladies. You are amazing and we are so proud of you. Go Lady Titans.
Sorry, before the Lady Titans leave, though, I would like to make one comment. Ladies, it's unbelievable to me, right, that you won Division 1. I mean, that is just right. I mean, for the rest of your life, you will say you won a Division 1 title. And I know that Mel said you did it because of teamwork, and that is for sure true, right? But I do think that we do need to applaud Mel, right? Because he does, right? He does care. Thank you, Mel, for everything that you do for our Lady Titans in our high school.
Thank you, Mel.
Yeah, he does. Thank you.
Well, we've managed to clear the room, but next up, 11B, San Marino High School Debate Team. This is recognition. This is an informational item. The Board of Education will recognize the San Marino High School Debate Team for winning first place sweepstakes at the SCDL Fall Debate Tournament for the 23rd time in 25 attempts. We have speaker coming up. Welcome to the podium, Mr. Win Mordecai. Hello there.
Hello, hello. Alrighty, so this past debate tournament, it was fall debate in the Southern California Debate League. And as was just said, this was in the 9 years that Matt Slimp has been doing this. This was the 23rd of 25 times San Marino has won sweepstakes, meaning our school has outcompeted all of the other schools in the league. So very, very impressive for our students. Give them another little round of applause for that. So we had two competitors, or two teams rather, who actually won a leg to the state championships just by competing in this tournament because they got first place at fall debate. And that would be Mark in Lincoln Douglas. And also Sean and Davis in policy debate. And so just to sort of show the team demographics and how impressive that is, raise your hand if you are a first-year student. Yeah.
All right. Half our team.
These are students who either went undefeated on the novice day of the tournament or managed to win a trophy in the varsity day of the tournament. And these are students who have competed only once before. And so to be able to show up to the tournament and compete alongside, in some cases, four-year seniors is really impressive. And we're super excited for the future of the team. And we are looking forward to the continued support of the school board. We really appreciate being able to come here because I know it means a lot to me as an alumnus of this program myself, and more importantly for the students. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
For you and for Mr. Slim, but I understand he's not here this evening, so you'd be kind enough to pass that on to him. And we have certificates for each one of the debate team members. So as I call your name and you come up and get your certificate.
Win, come on up to the front. Win, come on up to the front. Yeah.
Yes, Sean Kalaki.
On the other side. We're going to take a picture.
Davis Liang. Truman Pope. Timmy Yin. TJ Liao. Caroline Louis. Mark McDermott. Marco Repetto. Valerie, is it Lou or who? I can't, the plans on this. Okay, Celine Chi. Jacob Broussard. Alice Lane. Yanni Chow. Brandon Lee. Timothy Wong. And I have one for Preston Chang.
My partners.
Okay, all right. Should we have 2 rows? Maybe 2 rows. So the
Tall at the back.
yeah, tall.
Whenever you are. Dr. Delatour.
Okay. All right.
It's unbelievable. The teacher looks exactly like the kids. Isn't it amazing? I'm just looking at it like, are you kidding? Or we're really old.
Everybody look at this camera right here in the center. Start everybody's face. Here we go. 1, 2, and 3.
Used to be. How many years ago though?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, well, we've managed to clear the room again. Congratulations. Thank you, Jason. Next, number 12, communication from the audience regarding matters on the action agenda are to be made at this time. This is an informational item. Dr. Choi.
Thank you, President Ryan. We're pausing for 1 minute to take requests to speak regarding action items on the agenda. If you'd like to make a request, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. Hmm. 30 seconds remaining. If you'd like to make a request to speak regarding action items, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. President Ryan, we have no requests.
Thank you, Dr. Choi. 13 is an action item. This 13A, we are going to be doing a reorganization and election for the 2021-22 officers. This is an action item. So as board president, we have had a challenging but productive year this year. But I feel really honored to name and to elect Mrs. Nam Jack to serve as president for the 2021-22 year. I feel that this will be a good transition. Mrs. Nam Jack, I want to thank you for all the support that you gave me this year. You absolutely made me better, and you supported me in ways you cannot even imagine. So thank you so much. And I want to nominate you as board president for next year.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. And with that, I'd like to do roll call. Mrs. Jack?
Aye.
You have no choice. Mrs. Chang?
Aye.
Mr. Chang?
Aye.
Mr. Kalaki?
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, I, student board member. Thank you.
Before we go to the VP, can I say something?
Yes.
First of all, I want on behalf of board member and the school district appreciate Mrs. Sherry Ryan. As you know, I already mentioned a couple of times 2020 and 2021. Actually, last 20 months is actually is awkward, in a life. But since Miss Ryan take over from me as the board president, I think this was the big challenge. I think everyone know what's going on, the COVID-19 issue, close school, and then later have a board member resign, and we are from the 5 down to the 3. So and all kinds of challenge. I don't think the outsider understand, but I'm the one I understand, and but fortunately we always encourage each other, and we said hang in there, and then because for the student we have to keep going, so we cannot make the school district collapse and without a leadership. So finally, right now we go back to the normal. So I feel during the last several months, you are the one, make the school district continue to work. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. But Mr. Chang, I also want to add to what you were saying. I don't think we do this alone. Thank you so much for your mentorship this last year and for always answering my phone calls. He answers my calls any time of the day, so thank you. And Dr. Delatorre, don't go away, but you are instrumental in terms of your support for me as president, and then your cabinet as well. So thank you so much for this tremendous year. What a learning curve and a growth responsibility for this school district, but I am honored to have served, to be serving.
And we are honored to have worked with you during this period of time. You have demonstrated outstanding leadership, grace, dignity under fire. And I just want to tell you how much we appreciate your leadership, President Ryan, and just what you have meant to me personally in supporting me in a very difficult time. I want to say thank you so much. You are just an amazing person, and we are so grateful and lucky to have you on the Board of Education.
All right.
So you see this is a difference. Dr. Wilson never give me the flower.
Dr. Wilson, if you are following this, Mr. Chang is still waiting for his flowers.
I'll let him know.
All right. Next up, would anyone else like to? I can continue, or you want?
Okay. I would like to nominate Jen Chong as the vice president for the 2021 to 2022. Yeah.
I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Jack. Thank you, Mr. Chang. And with that, I'd like to do roll call vote. Mrs. Jack?
Aye.
Mrs. Chong, and you can't say anything other than aye, so.
Aye.
Mr. Chang?
Aye.
Mr. Kalaki?
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, aye, and student board member? Thank you. The motion passes. So with the board president and vice president, next, the board is, I am honored to nominate Mr. Joseph Chang to serve as clerk for the next year, 2021 to 2022.
I second.
Thank you, Mrs. Chong. So with that, we'd like to do roll call. Mr. Kalaki,
Aye.
Mr. Chang. He's still thinking. Dr. Wilson.
Maybe throw him a yellow rose.
Did he say aye? Okay.
Yeah.
Aye, because he was like this. Mr. Chang, can you
Aye.
speak in, thank you. Mrs. Chong,
Aye.
Mrs. Jack,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, I, student board member. Thank you. All right, this is this is now an action item. We've all voted. Do we have to do one more or do we rotate seats now?
I don't, do we rotate seats?
You
now?
actually rotate seats.
Seats
once-
now.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Here we go. Mrs. Jack.
Ah,
This is yours.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. You are well trained. Welcome.
So I'd like to make one comment. I still remember when our former illustrious board member, Lisa Link, became president of the board. Her husband brought for her this amazing flower bouquet to which my husband has never been able to live down. And so there you go. But we started with, Shelley.
Mrs. Jack, you'll also notice that my husband is absent each
Yes,
year
that's what-
that I was president as well. And in fact, other than the very first year, Kelly Ryan has never shown up to a board meeting. So I want to call that out and say that loud and clearly.
So the only person who comes out golden is Mr. David Link. So
Yeah.
please tell him that. will you tell him?
Well, I know he does have a hookup with the Rose Parade though, doesn't he?
So we started with, Mrs. Ryan, starting off the process in terms of, this evening as well as the election of board members. So I would like to do my first act, which would be to thank her for her extraordinary service as president of the board this past year. I think few people fully really understand the scope of our responsibilities to establish a vision for the education program and to provide accountability to the community that we serve. The job is not easy, endless number of meetings and school functions, reports, agendas, proposals, and information to review, much less the very difficult decisions we need to make. I think fewer people fully understand the scope of a school board president's responsibilities, more time spent and more personal sacrifices than one can ever imagine. School board members come from all walks of life. We were extremely fortunate that Shelley's background and expertise is in the educational field with decades of experience and expertise as a teacher and a school administrator. The San Marino School District and this board has been the lucky recipient of Shelley's outstanding leadership skills, community commitment, and advocacy for all our students. She has given more than we can fully comprehend, and we are forever grateful for her priceless gifts of kindness, wisdom, concern, and caring for the students, staff, and community. We owe you a huge debt of gratitude. Thank you, Shelley.
May I say something?
Of course.
Well, I wanted to wait until we sort of reorganize
Yes.
because I had wanted to say to both of you, Shelley, thank you. You showed tremendous grace and wisdom and patience with everybody, including me. And I am very grateful to have served under your presidency. So I want to just simply say thank you to that. And to Nam, thank you for saying yes again. And I look forward to learning from your experience and your wisdom, because I already know by now that when Nam does a job, she does it 100%. So I look forward to learning from you. So thank you. And thank you to my fellow board members as well, because I think all of us know we can't do this by ourselves. We're the only ones who realize what it's like. So thank you.
Thank you.
Now we come to 13B, appointments to board committees, board representatives. This is an action item. The board will decide on board appointed committee members and representatives for the following. I would like to point out that based on the sheet provided to the board members, there are about 19 to 20 openings, so to speak. And I was noticing based on last year's list that some people are on 5 different committees and some are only on 2. So to make sure that everyone has their fair share of, their burden and responsibilities, my request is that we try to even it up so that people are on, equal number of committees. So maybe 4. And I know that everybody would love to be involved in more, but, it does, I do think we have to kind of bear the weight. I'm sorry, Mrs. Johnson.
Well, I just wanted to address something, though. There are 3 committees on here before we get into actually assigning, if we're going to be good about bearing the weight equally, that I would actually propose the elimination from the list because they are no longer in effect. So the Facilities Advisory Committee, the first task force, and the San Marino Recreation Committee, I did confirm with the city that that is no longer an active committee. And I think with the city liaison position, a lot of that work sort of gets done in terms of the work with the city. So I think if we can eliminate those 3, even if we decide to bring them back, I think at that point, the objectives and the format of those future, whether they be financial or facilities committees, at that point, we can figure out, I would suggest that we figure out then, once we know what the objectives and goals and format is, which board members may want to serve on that.
So you said the 3 committee, facility and the San Marino
first.
recreation. Oh, first.
And
okay.
first. So
First and recreation, right? Is
right,
it
first
just
recreation and facility advisory. So those 3.
facilities.
And besides that, I just want to remind everyone, traditionally, Academic Advisory Committee and the San Marino School Foundation, we ask the president and VP.
And PTA council as well, right?
Yeah, PTA council, yeah, yeah.
So those are
Yeah,
always.
these are the 3
They're traditionally president
yeah,
and VP.
president and the VP. Yeah.
No, just so, yes, so for PTA representative, it's only 1, I believe.
Yeah.
Mr. Chan,
That's
right?
right,
And then, right, but San Marino Schools Foundation and the Academics Advisory is usually president.
No, actually, the school foundation, if president absent and then
then
VP
the
had
VP
to
goes.
attend. Yeah.
All right, so it'll be, so let's do then, PTA Council Representative and San Marino Schools Foundation will be me as president. And then if I can't go to either one, Jane, you will go in my stead as the vice president.
Are we, I know that last year was a departure because we had 2 people on, which was helpful during COVID especially. Are we going to continue for the sake of continuity to try to do 2? Or
For Academics Advisory, we've always had 2, and for City Liaison, we've always had 2, so
Okay.
those are coming.
Okay.
All right, so Academics Advisory, I guess I go as the president. Is that correct?
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
But we have not
haven't
met.
had- Yeah.
We've
All
not
right,
met.
but that I think may start going. So is there someone who would like to, please feel free to put your name forward.
For which one?
For academic advisory.
I'd like to do it.
Sean?
I would also like to be part of it.
Okay. So here's the thing with Academics Advisory. With respect to all the committees, right, we can all come back, right, and report, right? So if you don't mind, I may change it and Shelley ask you to do Academics Advisory and Mike for you two to be the school board liaison. Is that all right? Okay, so we'll have Shelley and Mike. Is that all right?
Sure, on academic advisory committee?
Yes.
Sure.
All right. City liaison. I'd like to be on that one if that's.
I would like to do that
Okay,
one if that's
all
all right.
Health benefits committee.
I'd like to do that.
Okay.
Before only the one board member.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've been doing this.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. Do you mind if he? All right.
Well, actually, this one is a very short meeting. They are not talk about other.
Right.
Just you know, when we change the benefit, so they need to review about the health insurance coverage. Yeah.
I think if it's all right, Mr. Chang, I would like to have your expertise on there. And then Mr. Kalaki, if you don't mind, I'd like you to have as a legislative representative. Would that be?
Sure,
Would that be all right with you? If that is something you'd be interested in.
it's fine.
Okay. All right. And the LACSTA representative?
This past year, Mrs. Chong and I have been the
Okay.
representative, but if Mr. Kalaki would like to take over,
It was you and Mike.
I know, but you've been attending with me.
Oh,
Mike has not been
Oh, okay.
attending. That's all I'm saying. I'm
Which one
saying
is
if Mr. Kalaki would like to come and do it, then you can do it with Mrs. Chong instead of myself.
That's fine.
Okay, so,
Mike and me for Loxta.
Okay.
Who is city liaison?
I am with NAM.
All right, so Shelley, you're only on one. Mike, you're on 3 now. Joseph, you're only on 1.
I will continue the safety and.
Okay.
wellness.
All right.
I think I'm the one always available.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chang.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
And San Marino Recreation Department, we don't have anything?
They're not meeting anymore.
No.
Okay, all right. So Shelley, we have you only attending 1. You're only 1 committee member.
But I can be available to support any of the board members
Okay,
to, sometimes schedules
all
get
right.
busy.
So Jane, you're on 2.
City and Loxta, yes.
Okay, and then Mike, you're on 3. So, and Joseph, you're on 2.
Yeah.
Shelley, would you go on safety and wellness with Joseph then?
Okay.
Okay,
Is there? a
That's
backup?
always been a challenge for me because it's right in the middle of the day, like from 9 to
Okay.
10:30.
all right. Well, we'll get back up for you one way or the other.
Okay.
Okay,
Is there backup for the PTA council?
it's always only 1 person. It's the president of the board who comes as the.
It's
in
just
case
Mrs. Jack,
there's
yeah.
scheduling
Well,
issues?
and then the
be-
VP would go.
And Jane's the backup for
the
San Marino
foundation
Schools
is,
Foundation
yeah.
as well.
So by backup, what is that?
Like if I can't attend.
Okay.
Mhm.
If I'm pretty flexible with my schedule during the day, so safety and wellness or any other day meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Great. All right. So with the academics advisory, then it would be Mrs. Ryan, and Mr. Kalaki. City liaison would be myself and Mrs. Chan. Health benefits committee would be Mr. Chang. LACSTA representative, would be Mr. Kalaki and Mrs. Chan. The legislative representative would be Mr. Kalaki. The PTA council representative is myself. Safety and wellness is Mr. Chang and Mrs. Ryan. And then the foundation is myself. And again, myself for the foundation and the PTA council is not really as Nam Jack, but as president of the board. Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have, it's an action item, so there has to be a
Can I
motion.
just ask,
For sure.
are we sure that we want to not have facilities advisory committee moving forward at this time?
No, I'm not saying, I don't think that was what you were saying. I think in January, when that discussion does come up, at that particular point in time, we can
Right.
we can revisit the issue of which board members. I think that is a discussion we have to have. Right now, there is not one.
Because technically the facility advisory committee was disbanded, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was, and so
Sure it is it?
it was, the people were thanked for their
after- yeah.
service and it was kind of, there was no
Yeah.
other further action intended to be taken. And so it's kind of been left open at this point. So when we went and if and or when we revisit it, then once the
Right,
objectives
we can reinstate it.
can be discussed again with board representation.
Or, right, we could do it now, but if so, then that would probably be either Shelley, Joseph, or you, because Mr. Kalaki has 3, I have 3, Mr. Chang, Mrs. Ryan, and you do not.
I feel like it would be better to just wait and see what that even looks like.
All right,
Jane does have 3, though.
you have 3?
You have 3.
Right.
Okay.
Well, yeah, so I mean, if we go back and look at it.
All right. Okay, so I'd like to ask someone to make a motion to approve the action item as to which board members will serve on what committees.
And I just,
So, oh,
I was just gonna restate.
Yes.
okay, go ahead, restate.
So academic advisory committee, because Mike, you said I had 3? I don't think I have.
Yeah,
3.
Shelley and I are on the Academic Advisory Committee. Nam and you are on City Liaison. Actually, you have 4. You're also on the LAXTA representative, and you're also the PTA Council.
No, she's
representative.
No, she's just backup.
No, I'm just backup for, I think that's where you think, it's not 4. I'm just backup for PTA Council and Foundation. So if Mrs. Jack, as board president, is unable to attend, then I will attend in her
The vice
stead.
president does.
The
And
vice
again, it's
president.
not Nam Jack and it's not Jane Chan, it's just the president and then.
Okay,
If we put a 2 name, mean that they can attend the same time. But we put a 1 name, mean that that's a backup, yeah.
So we're-
Unless the first one can attend, then the second backup. Yeah.
so we're not listing Jane as the foundation, or we are?
No.
Well, the
not
foundation
listing-
always the president, yeah, unless a president cannot make it, and then VP
Right.
And
attend the meeting.
For PTA Council and for Foundation, it is the president.
okay,
I think we're good.
Okay, someone, I would like to ask someone to make a motion.
Move to move for this motion, yeah.
Second,
Mrs. Ryan, second. Roll call vote, Mr. Kalaki,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
I,
Mrs. Chan,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan,
aye.
Mrs. Jack, aye. Student board member? Thank you very much. CSBA nomination action item number 13C, the nomination of a CSBA delegate assembly representatives. Is that 1 or 2?
Jennifer, do you have that information?
We currently have Ms. Chan serving as the representative.
All right, okay.
But now it's going to be Mr. Kalaki or it's still Miss Chung?
Well, Mr. Kalaki has many, so it's.
Okay, Mrs. Chung.
Mrs. John?
Sure.
All right, I'd like someone to make a motion.
So moved.
Second.
a second.
Any discussion? No? Roll call vote, I'm sorry, Mr. Clacky,
aye,
Mr. Chang,
I,
Ms. Chan,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan,
Aye.
Mrs. Jack, aye. Student board member? Okay, motion passes. All right, certificate of signatures, action item is requested by Superintendent Delatorre to authorize all warrants, salary payments, contracts as superintendent. It's an action item.
I move to authorize Dr. Delatorre signature certification.
Second,
I second.
Ms. Ryan, roll call vote, Mr. Kalaki,
aye,
Mr. Chang,
I,
Mrs. Chan,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan,
Aye.
Mrs. Jack, aye. School, student board member, sorry, student board member. Thank you. All right, number 13E, Educator Effectiveness Block Grant. Dr. Richter.
Thank you, President Jack, members of the board, student board member, Superintendent Dr. Delatorre, and executive team. Tonight, it is my pleasure to bring back to the board the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant proposal. As a condition of the receiving the funds for this block grant, school districts must develop and present to the governing board their plan of expenditures for the block grant prior to its adoption at a subsequent meeting. So tonight we are bringing back to the board the Effective Educator Block Grant and asking the board for a recommendation for approval. The block grant was presented to the board on November 9th for the first time as an informational item. So we are bringing it back to the board and recommending approval.
Does anyone on the board have any questions for Dr. Richter?
I have a question. So just to clarify, we already have the grant funds coming to us. This is, we're approving the plan for the expenditures of those.
Correct.
We're not applying for a grant.
That is correct.
Any other questions? All right, would someone like to make a motion?
I make the motion.
Mrs. Ryan, second.
Second?
Mrs. Chang, roll call vote, Mr. Kolaki,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan,
Aye.
Mrs. Jack, aye. Student board member? All right, number 13F, first interim financial report and long-range financial projections. It is an action item and we are lucky to have Mrs. Pearl Izuka here again.
Thank you, President Jack, members of the board, Superintendent Dilatory, school student board member, executive cabinet, and members of the public. I'm really disappointed that the room cleared out when I can't believe nobody wants to hear this. I believe Vanjie's online. She should be able to, if there are questions that I can't answer, she can call in and be able to respond. So we are at this point going to go over our first financial report. And I wanted to just explain why we're doing it. The law requires that during 2 periods of time that we present an interim report. And this first one is through the actual activity that occurred through October 31st. So you, in the report, you'll see the actual expenses that have occurred through that time. And then the second interim will be through January. So in March, we will, at that point, give your second interim report. And the other thing, though, that the first interim does, it's a 100-page document that we're going to spend every minute tonight going over every page.
Line by line.
Line by line. No, but in that report, we're not going to go into the details, but there are a number of other things. First of all, we're going to spend most of our time today talking about the general fund, but there are other funds as well that we have to give you an update on. For example, food services, deferred maintenance, up to our bond measure, all of those funds have the same exact reporting requirements. And so they're included in this report. Also, in the report, we have to not only present how we see this year, but the next 2 years too. So when I'm going to recommend a positive certification, we're saying that we can not only meet the financial obligations for this year, but the next 2 years as well. And that we will have enough in reserves for the next 2 years so that we can accurately and certify that we are positively certifying. In addition, and lastly, well, there are 2 other things that I want to mention is there is a cash flow statement in there. And that cash flow is different than budget. We always have to remember, it's like your checking account. And we have to make sure that we have enough cash on hand to pay our bills. And so, for example, our payroll costs are about 2 million a month. So we need to have at least that much and more in our checking account. Basically, it's the county treasurer who actually is holds our checks, our monies for us. So that report shows what our cash balances are and what we estimate that's going to be till the end of the year. This was an important document last year and the year before when we were deferred, we didn't get all our monies. And so that cash flow showed that we were not going to have enough money to pay our bills. And that's why you did a trans or you did some other kind of financial tool to get you through those humps that you'll get, it's sort of like the state says, we're going to give you the money, but they don't give it to you in the time that you need it. So that's why you use that. But the cash flow is also in there.
Can I interrupt? So the train already pay back or?
Yes, we have no tram this year.
Okay, when we pay back?
I think we paid it, I'm not sure, but I believe it was by June of last fiscal year. So we have no obligation this year at all for any trans. And if you see, we have healthy cash balances. That report will show you that we have enough every month to take care of our obligations and we don't need
to borrow any money at all. And so when we're certifying, we're not only saying that we're going to meet our obligations this year and the next 2 years, but we have enough cash on hand not to be concerned and that we can meet our obligations. So those two ed codes are summarizing why we're here today and the reports that are being presented. There are 3 certifications. One is saying that we can meet those obligations. Another one saying we may not make it. It's questionable in the out years. And the negative means that you are either don't have enough cash on hand or that you're not going to make your reserves in the next, this current year or even next year. And we never want to be in that position. We try everything we can to never have to file a negative certification, because then that begins the process of where the district is getting taken over. So we don't want to go there. We always want to try to have that positive certification.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
And I think I know the answer, but I'm hoping that you can, refresh my recollection. What is the consequence of a qualified certification? What's the consequence of a negative certification for us?
Okay, so qualified is that you're basically now being put on a watch list. And because you are going to need to take some action, and the county's going to be our oversight person. So if they see that you can either self-certify, which a lot of districts do, saying that they're going to have problems unless they do some reductions or some other kind of action in order to make their financial situation change. Or the county can do an evaluation of your interim reports and change. If you say you're positive, but in their estimation, you can't, they may change you to qualified. But it's just you're placed on a watch list, and they're watching and making sure that you submit a fiscal stabilization plan or that you're taking actions. So.
And what's the negative certification?
Negative certification is you're not only being placed on the county list, but now you're getting state recognition for that as well. And at that point, they may bring FCMAT in, and or they may bring a fiscal advisor in, which I actually had to do for a district because they were negative. And so they asked me if I would go in and be their fiscal advisor to watch and making sure. And at that point, it becomes not only looking at the district, but it's looking at the board actions to seeing whether or not the actions that the board's taking is in the best interest. But you're on your way to actually being in a situation where you're not going to have the control over the district because you're not able to meet your obligations.
So is that a cash reserve for the 3%? That's the
That's one of
requirement
the
for
markers.
us the positive certificate, right?
Exactly. And then if you in the out years can't meet it, then that starts you on that track of going.
So mean if you don't have a cash reserve, then you are not this category.
Yes. If you have your 3%, then you're gonna, and you can make your obligations, and you would not be qualified or negative, right?
Now, we actually have quite a bit more than 3% though in
Yes,
reserves,
so
right?
that's why we're gonna be not a concern.
What amount do we have in reserves?
Well, we have the minimum 3%, and then we have all of we'll talk about this later, but we do have assigned balances of our ending that could be moved if you needed to. And I would count the fiscal stabilization and the enrollment as part of our economic reserve as well. So.
And Pearl, one of the things that John Gray was saying is that the 3% is the minimum reserve for
Yes.
our size school district.
Right.
So you can't really spend that reserve. You always have to have it. So whatever you have in reserve above that is really your reserve.
Yeah. So it's basically our reserve will take care of maybe 1 month's payroll. That's it. And so what do you do the next month? You're out of money. So
if you spend any of that 3% reserve, you have to put it right back because you always have to
Yeah.
maintain a 3% reserve.
That's right.
So you're saying that the 3% economic uncertainties reserve would cover about a month.
About a month, yeah.
And then we also have the cash flow reserve at 2 million, the future COPs at 1.5 and the declining enrollment at 2.5?
Yeah, if we had to,
Those are all reserves as well.
yes. Yes, but the board took action to assign those so that, because we don't believe we'll never need to use it for that reason, so. And if we control our expenses and our finances, hopefully we won't need to go there to use those. That's the goal. So the first thing we're going to talk about, now we're just going to focus on the general fund right now. So these are the assumptions. Remember, a budget is a plan, which is different than cash, which you have money in the bank, right? A plan can change, and a plan is dependent on what you assume. If you make any changes in those assumptions, then your budget changes accordingly. And it's a dynamic document because things change all the time. So it's hard to say, okay, well, you said this number this month, and then the next month you said another month. Well, maybe the assumptions have changed. And so that's where we always have to be explicit as to what we're talking about so that we're always comparing apples to apples. So these are the assumptions that we made, that, you know, there's declining enrollment and funded at ADA, that we did have an increase in LCFF funding from what we budgeted in June. Now, remember, we had you adopt a budget in June, and now this time at the first interim is giving you an update to that budget that we had adopted in June. So we did have a slight increase in LCFF funding. We had increase in federal and state funding, and that's basically our COVID dollars that we're now realizing. We have a slight increase in our parcel tax revenues, increase in our facility use revenues. And as Mr. Chang mentioned, we have one of our facility use that we actually, and you're correct, we need to increase that, but we have increase in revenues for our facility use, and we had donations from our parents. And so.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Going back to the increase in the parcel tax revenues,
Mhm.
is there an explanation for why that occurred?
So those are, let's see, did we, yeah, parcel tax revenue, there's 73,000 more than what we had budgeted. So this chart is lined up, those things that I just read to you. This is the numbers, this is the numbers to that story. So these are all the things that we assumed at the adopted budget. And the middle column now is this first interim report that we're doing today. And so the difference is in that last column. So what you're looking at is the assumptions that we made in June compared to what we're giving you the update now, and the changes are listed there.
Is it common that we have a give or take of approximately $80,000 from parcel taxes, or is this a unique situation that?
There's
Well,
a 3% COLA, right? Or
Yeah.
CPI, whichever is higher on
Right.
the parcel tax.
And, you
annually.
know, we do our best in estimating what we think we're gonna get. And this is giving you a more, live update as to what we are thinking at this point. And this is giving you the numbers for it.
And also, Pearl and Mr. Kalaki, my understanding also, and this is one of the questions I was going to ask you about the parcel tax is, you know, part of that revenue also fluctuates not only with respect to the COLA, but how many senior exemptions are into the.
That's part of what
So,
I was getting at.
yes.
Do we have a decrease in senior exemptions, or do we, which
I
can
don't-
provide?
No.
I don't think so, but I think they've gone up. But it could be that we estimated that the CPI would draw in so much money, and then actually is bringing in more than what we thought. This is good news. I mean, you got a slight increase. And those assumptions, these are the actual dollars. And you can see LCFF, slight decrease. The federal dollars, that's COVID. The majority of that is COVID dollars. Yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to go back to something, under receipt of parent donations in the first interim assumptions. I wanted to ask, that also includes donations that are in and out donations too, right? Because I know that sometimes we take donations, quote unquote, for things like field trips, but we have costs associated
Yeah,
with it.
so
So when you say parent donations, that's not necessarily like just straight cash donation, like.
No, the in and outs would not, because it would wash out, because
Okay.
there would be a
So this
corresponding
is-
expense.
So
So this is the
not in
net,
and out.
yeah.
Okay,
net.
thank you.
So these are the actual dollars for the revenues that we just made the assumptions for. And then this next slide.
Can you stay in the,
Previous.
yeah, so the other local, is that not including for develop fee or
No.
no? No?
The other local is such as lease rental revenues. It's also interest that we get on our dollars that are in the county treasury. It's donations
So where we put the developer fee?
in its own fund, Fund 25. Yes. And this is just sharing with you how the different dollars, how it breaks out. And you can see that the majority of our funding comes from the state as far as LCFF funding. And again, just about by way of background, the way LCFF is funded, it's average daily attendance times the amount per student. And for just rough purposes, it's about $10,000 a student. And then, so we get that amount, we're allocated that amount in funding. And it's first paid for from the local property taxes in this area. And then after that, the shortfall is then backfilled by the state. So high property tax people, it helps the state out because then they don't have to come back and backfill as much state aid. But also the shares that when the economy is bad, that's why we get affected so much, because we are basically depending on the state to give us our funding. Back in the Prop 13 days, when you could assess local taxes, you didn't have that dependency on the state, but this is why the funding is the way it is. The other thing I want to note is that about 26%, and it's gone down from previous years because of a high amount of federal funding we got this particular year. So the percentage has gone down, but 26% of that is from our local income, parcel tax, foundation dollars, donations, all of that, which is way higher than most school districts. So as we move on to our expenditure assumptions, we're looking at the actual, we estimated it in June when we adopted the budget, what the step and column changes would be. And again, step and column is that for everybody that's employed, they can potentially move over in their columns, and with seniority, they move down. And so there's a cost to that. We make an estimate of what that's going to cost. And then now we're giving you the actual numbers after we place everybody in their position. We did have some salary and benefit savings because of some reductions that we've made. And the corresponding salary reductions also decreases benefits. We had carryover that we did not plan for when we adopted the budget. And so now we have, for all those school sites that had those donations and those COVID dollars, we've added back the expenses. So there's been an increase in supplies and services. And then we allocated those parent donations to the school site for their accounts. We see a decrease in special ed contribution, just a little bit. And again, let's talk about special ed contribution. So our program is about $8 million. I think it is, if I remember correctly. And we don't get anywhere near the funding of that. And so then the general fund has to contribute the difference for what we do not receive in federal funding.
I'm sorry, Pearl, what percentage do we get of that 8 million?
I did not do that based on,
I thought it was close to like 13% of that.
could be.
In previous years, it was.
I thought it went down to like,
I think that's pretty
Trump.
low. It's usually higher than that, but.
well, it's supposed to be.
But
supposed
that's
to be-
money
it's
out of,
Supposed to be
Yeah.
higher.
Has never materialized.
Oh, what percentage of the income you mean, or?
What
the
percentage
expense?
is the federal government actually?
Yeah,
giving
I think
us-
it's like 17% if I remember correctly. And we were waiting to try to authorization to like 35.
yeah, but it.
It's
hasn't
never
come in. Yeah.
materialized. Yeah, so. And so that's an expense that the unrestricted fund has to always pay for. And it's an expense that we have to continually budget. And then we do have the minimum 3% reserve. So these are the actual dollars. You can see here again, in June, we adopted a budget with the numbers. And the middle column is the actual first interim now that we've updated our numbers. And then the differences have been is up there. So you can see the big negative ones like books and supplies. That's actually now budgeting in those carryover dollars, the COVID dollars, and all of that in operating as well as books and supplies. That's what that represents. We did not know that we were going to have those carryovers when we adopted the budget. And so once we closed the books and saw that, as well as the dollars that are coming in, primarily COVID, we now have budgeted those numbers.
I'll ask a question on the expenditures.
Mhm.
So the things like the cash flow reserve, the other reserves that we talked about, are those are
not here. I'll show
they're
them
not
to
here
you.
because they're not expenditures. They are just reserves.
Right.
And are able to be moved for any other thing on the budget.
Right. So the mechanics of what will happen is it's basically our savings account, right? So if we're going to spend it, we just will end up pulling from that in order to make up, whatever expense that we're having at the time. So it's not in here. It's below that. So we would be spent. I'll show you where that is in just a moment.
Yeah, I mean, I see it later on. I know you're
Yeah.
gonna get there on the first interim ending balance.
Right.
But those reserves, that 2.5 million for declining enrollment, that 1.5 million for future COP payments, the $2 million for cash flow reserve, and so on. Those could be applied if needed to any one of these on the expenditures
Yes.
sheet,
Yes.
whether it's
Yes.
equipment or facilities or certificated salaries, classified salaries,
Yes.
correct?
With board action, yes.
By the way, you don't have to answer right now. Maybe you can prepare later.
Yes.
To the board. I would like to know what is the list to spend on the equipment. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, when you say difference, better or worse? So we spent more money, we spent more money than we originally budgeted.
In this case, it means that you've saved money or that there's more money coming back to you. In the case of the certificated salaries, we budgeted 16.3 million, but at this time, we're saying it's only going to be 15.9. So it's favorable to us in that it's 371,000, basically less than what we thought. So it's a favorable. Whereas if it's in the brackets, like in books and supplies, it means 3 million less, or more in expense, I should say.
And I guess my question then is, we had our adopted budget and then now we're actually spending the money.
Right.
Because that was our budget before we
Mhm.
started the school year. We started the school year, now we're spending, and I mean, these are pretty big numbers.
Right.
What was that because we just didn't know what our spending was gonna look like when we did the budget?
Well, some of it was that we did not realize the carryover that we were bringing forward for this year. And secondly, COVID. I mean, there's COVID dollars in there. The majority of this is COVID.
Okay.
So we won't see this kind of swing in, I don't
Future
believe,
years,
in the
right.
future years, because this is
Not
one
good.
time
Yeah,
money.
This is a new,
Yeah,
Is that showing in like the books and supplies, the
Mhm.
$3 million?
yeah, yeah.
Well, is there an explanation why the certificated salaries was almost $400,000 less?
So we probably, my guess is a couple of things that we probably anticipated a higher step and column than actually realized. But you also have one particular salary that you're not paying this year. That would be superintendents, that would be in there as well. Also your business person, you don't have a business person in there. So that's pretty much where that certificated salary is, savings is. Okay, this pie chart basically gives you a graphic representation of our expenses. And just of note, if you take certificated, classified, and benefits, that totals about 75% of our budget. So when we're talking about declining enrollment and where we need to make reductions, that's really where we need to do. We need to go look at staff because, as I mentioned before, we're a people business. And so that's where our majority of our expenses are. And there really is nowhere else for us to go. And so that's the unfortunate part. That's a good part, that's where people business, but that's also where our expenses are.
I had a question regarding that particular
Yeah.
percentage number. So when I was looking in the interim budget on page 77, the criterion of salaries and benefits, and maybe I'm not reading this correctly, but the number in here is different. Is that because the amount doesn't take into account dollars from COVID, or I'm just not sure what the difference in the number percentage is? Because I feel like that's low compared to what we historically spent on our budget. Usually our budget would comprise in the mid to high 80s of our salaries. And I know that we made significant cuts, but is that because there's just so much more money in the denominator, so to speak?
Yes, yes.
Because the
yeah.
pie is bigger.
Yes, the pie is bigger, and you can see the supply costs are higher because of COVID. So it throws the proportionality off.
So that 74.5 isn't really an accurate number of what our normal operational budget is.
That's probably true.
Right?
That's
because
probably true.
it's actually more in the 80s, most likely, like page 77 would indicate.
has been historically,
Right?
yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's sort of like the same explanation for the revenue where, because we had such a big infusion of federal dollars that we normally would never get.
Right.
Because of COVID, it shows the percentages of the other areas are lower than what we normally.
Because
would
normally our local funds
in the
are 30%
30s. Yeah.
of our entire revenues.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're showing up as 26 now, so.
Yeah,
So, yeah, because that's all one-time funding.
correct, correct. So we talked a little bit about the contribution to special ed, and we can see here that we actually have to contribute 5 million to support our special ed program. And so if it would be really wonderful, I know that there's been work for probably the last 30 years to try to get the federal IDEA to be where they promised some time ago, where we could get up to 30-35%. I think we're at like 17, if I remember correctly. But this is probably, the costs for special education programs continue to rise, but we don't get the corresponding funding. And so we have to make that program whole. And the only way we can do that is to contribute from the general fund. And that, that's an expense. That's a lot for this district. I mean, every district has this issue because they're funded the same way for special education, but it's a big component of our expenses that we need to acknowledge. And then we also contribute to our maintenance because we are in the deferred maintenance program. So we do set aside dollars for that. So when we then begin our budget and we add our revenues in and add our beginning balance in, subtract our expenses, we see that we began with 12.2 and now we're ending with 12.4. So we're basically, when you look at both funds, we are balanced at this point. And so we will end this year, we're projecting at this point that we will end the year with 12.5. And then the board actually took action to assign cash flow. And that again is, we put that in there for potential for the parcel tax and foundation to set aside so that for future stabilization and those two funding sources. The COP payments of 1.5, that's in addition to what we've budgeted to plan every year. And then we've set aside 2.5 for declining enrollment and for future year stabilization, 3.7. And then at the top there is our reserve for economic uncertainty.
So the COP 1.5 million, that is including principal, right? Or no?
Well, it's just set aside if we were to pay them off, that we would be able to hopefully pay off everything of principal. The longer we extend it out, more interest we're paying.
Yeah.
We've been paying for 2 years now, I think 2 or 3 years, and we're still at the same place as to how much we borrowed. So we've only been paying interest payments at this point.
Well, each year about 400,000.
Close to 500, right?
Yeah,
So that's
so-
3 years there of payments.
So the 3.7 million for the future year stabilization, what is that for?
Just that we're gonna, if we are gonna continue to decline, we want to try to make a softer landing so we don't have to make drastic reductions. So that helps us for the next couple of years to slowly ramp down.
So that 3.7 is to address the declining enrollment?
Right, as well as the declining enrollment of 2.5 together, both.
Okay, so that's like a 7%, correct? A 3.7 roughly?
Yeah.
And then the 2 million cash flow reserve is about 4% reserve?
Well, 3% is 1.4, so you can do, yeah.
Yeah, and then you got future COP, which is approximately another 3%, and then you've got declining enrollment, which is roughly 5%. I mean, that's 3, 10, 14.
But you realize it's only
17.
one-time money, right? Because once we spend it, it's gone. Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah. That's like our savings account. So we want to not spend it all. And as we've been advised by school services, we need to maintain more than just 3. We need to be concerned about continuing. Actually, more districts have more than 3. I think the average is like 15.
Yeah. And actually, I have to say that the president of school services of California, John Gray, and also Dr. Robert McIntyre have said that a district our size, in order to be fiscally solvent in the out years, especially with declining enrollment, should have a 17% reserve.
And so if we add up the 3% and the 7 and the 4 and the 3 and the 5, we're up over 22%.
That's great.
This year.
This year.
And that's
it's going to
here
be
and that's
spent.
one-time
Yeah.
money, right?
Well, but it's not going anywhere, correct?
Well, you spend it, it'll be, you can't replenish it.
We owe $6 million on the Barth Athletics Complex, right? So we have to figure that out. One way or the other.
It isn't recurring money.
Right.
Right.
And so this is it. This is all we've got. And after that, there's not any more coming. So for example, with respect to declining enrollment, right? If the numbers keep going down, right, we are going to have to drastically reduce the number of teachers that we have. Is that
Yes,
correct? Right?
correct.
So this is the money that we use as a backdrop to make it more of a softer landing, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Again, only one-time money. And the reason why it's so important to me is, you know, we've all been here for many, many, many years. We did have certain one-time monies which were all spent, and then we ended up where we are today.
Yes.
So that is, for me, history. I don't want it to repeat itself.
And that's
And unless
fiscally
you
prudent.
understand, right, where it is and that it's one-time money and what could happen, we're going to be right back to where we were before.
Right.
But we also have, is there any estimate on what COLA will be in the future?
I think we're looking forward to hearing from that. We're understanding that things are looking up. But until we hear the governor's budget in January, we can't say for certain. So, you know, I don't want to really throw out any numbers at this point. So.
Any estimates that we're hearing?
We really need to wait until the governor's budget is released.
Yeah, we don't really want to get out there in front of it
Yeah.
because.
I will say I was disappointed last year because there was obviously a huge surplus of funds. And San Marino saw very little of that as it went to categorical funding and it went to create new programs where the funding will only be available for 1 or 2 years max. And so we didn't see any of those surplus funds that came out of that. So I'm not holding my breath right now on what happens for the next budget.
Right.
Even if there is a surplus, you know, I don't know that we as San Marino are going to see any of that when you see other districts and their average per pupil is 20,000. And we're nowhere near that compared to those other districts.
Right.
That's right.
I want to point out again on the COP, so everyone understand. Actually, the donor is very generous.
Yes.
Right.
It continue to pay the interest, but probably this may be I cannot speak on behalf of him, but this may be the last one.
It is the last.
So that's the reason it's very important. You know, our CBO need to budget some for the future. So I want to share with everyone. That's the reason. Personally, I'm very conservative. Yeah. So we really need to meet the future need. It's not the the money there. Yeah, just use. Yeah. So
I found it interesting in one of our email updates that Alameda County has actually started the process of taking over Oakland Unified School District because of the fact that they couldn't make the cuts and they were trying to cut 6 million and they needed to cut like 23 million. And their board was unwilling to make those tough decisions because their hearts were with their students. And yet the future of those schools and the closures that they were looking at are very sad to see.
Yeah. That's what's happened. Is that if you know the board can't make the decision, they'll bring a trustee in here who will, and it'll be the exact same decisions that the board could have made, but they didn't do them. But the trustee will come in and do it. And at that point, you know, the board loses all its authority,
right?
And the superintendent loses their job, and they bring in this trustee to basically be the czar for the district.
And our students lose their schools.
Yeah, right.
Historically, do we have any information as to the last time that we had a reserve that was over 20%?
I don't have that information.
Is there anybody that would have
I'm
that
sure we
information?
can.
We could go back and look at when Dr. Turnus was here, we had a cash flow reserve account that we used to borrow from ourselves.
It wasn't that much.
No, it wasn't that much. It was over $7 million. We had over $7 million in that
was
account.
from the sale.
I think we can move on and, you know, if she has that information, she can provide it to you.
Right. I mean, I think we have to, this is a very unusual time where we got, most of this is because of COVID dollars, one-time monies. So it's probably not comparable to anything we've ever done because it's been such a unique situation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
I mean, the reason why I'm asking the questions and bringing it up is I understand the importance of reserves. I think that those are important. It just kind of seems as though some of these reserves are duplicative, declining enrollment and future year stabilization because of declining enrollment and so on. You're looking at $6 million plus there.
Mr. Kalaki, I said that she can provide you the information further on. Okay?
I appreciate
Right now?
that. The reason why I'm bringing this up though, is because it impacts my decision on how I'm going to vote on this interim budget.
Thank you.
So getting information later is not necessarily going to address those issues. I'm trying to point out that there are important issues here with regard to over 20% of
Mr. Kalaki, though, I don't think this budget has anything to do with opinion. I think this budget is something that is factual that Pearl has put together to provide to the state. This is not an advisory opinion. So this is just a factual one. And of course, you are permitted to do whatever you would like in terms of the voting of this. And because this is an action item, but this has an issue with respect to what numbers she has decided to plug in on behalf of the district.
And I don't think we're actually voting on this budget anyway. We're only voting to approve the recommendation for positive certification, right?
Yeah.
Right, which has nothing to do with the opinions of how that money is allocated. It has to do with whether or not we agree with your assessment that this budget meets the recommendation for positive certification.
So we're not voting to support this interim budget being submitted?
Well, your action is that we're recommending a positive certification and that we can meet our financial obligations for the current year and the next 2 years out, and that we have the cash reserves to support that. That's what you're taking action on tonight.
Okay. But respectfully, I do think that the opinions of each of the board members are important. And that's why we have these discussions, so that we can submit what we do believe are important opinions to consider with regard to interim budgets and what certification we plan to submit.
I want to just, Pearl, I just want to thank you for your work on this. This is incredible, taking into account all of the assumptions and, you know, just coming in and helping us, in fact, look at the first, second, and 3-year projection. I so appreciate this. It's like a roadmap for me to kind of look at where things are and how we can continue to budget and plan to support the students and the services that we have promised our students, and looking at the assumptions that you've made. Really important for us to see the big picture. And I thank you for your expertise, and Dr. Delatorre and the rest of cabinet who've looked at this and planned carefully for us. Thank you.
And I also just wanted to thank you, Pearl, and acknowledge that we have had other outside experts review this information and this data, and basically acknowledge that it's the right, appropriate path for San Marino to take in terms of the reserves.
So just 2 more slides. This one just talks about our next step as we continue to balance our budget and all of the things that we need to consider when we're looking at the budget. We will be back in March to give you a more up-to-date. At that point, we will have gone through half of the year. And so we'll know much better because we'll have spent half the year, and we can project. It'll be easier for us to project how we'll end the year. But these are all the things that we need to consider as we balance this year's budget, but as we look to start developing next year's budget as well. And so with that, it's our recommendation that you file a positive certification, that the district is able to, based on these projections, meets its obligations for the current year and the next 2 years. So.
Thank you so much, Pearl. Very, very, very much. We appreciate your expertise. We appreciate everybody's input. So this is an action item requesting that we approve the filing of a positive certification. So I believe we've had our discussion. So would someone like to make a motion?
Before we make a motion,
yes,
Pearl, can I just point out
yes,
you want to mention the
yes,
page
yes.
4, yeah.
On one of our forms, Mr. Chang noticed that we had estimated for the Chinese school, I think it was $9,000, and we need to update that number to, I think it's 12,000.
Yeah,
I can't remember the exact
I
amount.
think
but
120
for the year. Yeah.
From 9,000 to 120? What?
No, this is just 9,000. Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, and that was because during COVID, they didn't pay the full facilities fee because they didn't use the facilities for the time we were shut down.
And so I think what we were conservative and we kept that number going forward because we didn't know at the time when we adopted the budget. And so we carried that into the interim. So we do need to update that number. That's lower than what we. But thank you, Mr. Chang, for noting that.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. With that in mind, would someone like to make a motion? So moved.
I second.
Mrs. Ryan, Mrs. John, roll call vote, Mr. Clarky.
Just to confirm, the motion is to file a positive certification.
I believe that's what it says on the last slide that Mrs. Izuki provided to us. To file a positive certification, the district certifies it based on its projections, it will meet its financial obligations for the current year and 2 subsequent fiscal years. If you don't feel that we can meet those financial obligations, then you can vote no.
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Chang?
Aye.
Mrs. Chan?
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan?
Aye.
Mrs. Jack? Aye. Student board member? Thank you. I believe we are now to our final item, number 14, board superintendent discussion items. Superintendent Delatorre. No, nothing. Just thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned. It's 9:20.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So end of year